seen the pictures of you campaigning late into the hours of the night. Mashal leke, raat ko. Now, you and I have, known each other for many years. मुझे तो नहीं लगता कि these images were possible, a few years ago. So if we want to say nothing has changed, as a number of the politicians from the Kashmir Valley are saying today, वो भी गलत होगा. Wahid, how do you see what has happened? क्योंकि ये images
I think
देखिए आप, अपनी images, आपकी अपनी campaign की images हैं.
I think, Barkha, this is the most important part of this whole conversation, and the reason we are facing such situation, what happened in Jammu also, is that people in Delhi, especially media and government, has to be really very careful. How do they project the turnout and normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir? Because in the end, this whole war of narratives of defining your peace and our peace, your turnout and our turnout, is a lot to do. How things become more unstable in Jammu and Kashmir. The whole credit of turnout should be given to the people of Kashmir. People have come out, they have initiated a dialogue, they have initiated a political process, so moto, with the people of India, with the government of India. Despite that, government has been trying their level best
With
to
the
isolate
with
Kashmiris,
the rest of India, I would like to say.
with the rest of India, with
With the rest
everyone,
of
with the
India.
whole
Yes.
establishment in Delhi who've been trying to isolate Kashmiris from last many years. But the people, especially the boycott constituency, the youth constituency, people, especially like the militant families, their mothers, kids, children, everybody was on polling booth. I saw a lot of people for the first time from an 18-year-old to 80-year-old. You have first-time voters in Jammu and Kashmir coming out and voting for the Constitution of India, voting for the democracy of India, voting for this whole festival where Kashmiris were always against. This is one day we have celebrated together. So after 70 years, this has happened. After 30 years of turmoil and violence, even if I have lost elections, I think the biggest victory is that the process has won, and that credit should be given to the people of Kashmir, to the youth of Kashmir. It should not become that BJP has done something miraculous, whatever may be the reasons, or this whole credit should be given to the people. And when we try to sell this credit, when we try to politicize the credit, that's where the whole problem of narratives comes, and that's when a lot of people who feel threatened by such definitions try to create instability in this region. And that's what has happened somewhere in Jammu. Whoever has felt threatened, whoever has felt cornered or isolated, has tried to
But
create a
Wahid,
situation
but
where we feel polarized. Today, this is an attack, not just a militant attack, terror attack. This is an attack also to create polarization in this place. This will create a lot of tensions, communal tensions, and such attacks are meant to provoke us. So you have to be very careful in a situation where people are
can,
actually moving towards progress. That
can
how do
I
we
ask you?
define this
Can I
turnout?
ask you? Can I ask you something? I met in Baramulla um, a former stone pelter. He used to be known as Chota Gilani. उसका नाम रखा हुआ था क्योंकि वो सड़कों पे आके पत्थर फेंकता था. He
जी
voted
जी.
for the first time in his mid-30s. Then I met the father of two militant sons, one who was killed in an encounter, the other who is still in jail. He said, I want to invest in this process. I am saying, yes, the people of Jammu and Kashmir have invested in democracy in the process. But why do you link that with a Pakistan-backed terror group? What is
I'm
the
not.
connection? What is the connection? I want to understand why you're linking these two things.
जैसे आपने बोला, वैद साहब ने भी कहा कि कुछ लोगों को लगता है जो प्रोसेस होता है, या हसनैन साहब ने बहुत अच्छे से क्लियरली बोला दैट दिस हैज हैपन, टाइमिंग ऑफ दिस इंसिडेंट इज समथिंग टू डू विद व्हाट्स हैपनिंग इन कश्मीर, इन जम्मू एंड कश्मीर. देयर इज द फर्स्ट टाइम अ political huge turnout, massive turnout, and things will unfold. Good and bad things will unfold. So we have to all be very careful to save this process of that Kashmiris have initiated. So moto, we saw Amir Jamaat on polling booth. That's a huge statement. After like for 30 years they said ये जमहूरियत कबूल ही नहीं है. आज 30 साल के बाद वो लोग जमहूरियत को, प्रोसेस को, डेमोक्रेसी को, उन्होंने वोट जिसको भी डाला हो, उन्होंने वोट जहां पे भी डाला हो, वो पोलिंग बूथ पे खड़ा होना इज अ ह्यूज स्टेटमेंट. एंड दैट्स द विक्ट्री ऑफ इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी, दैट्स अ विक्ट्री ऑफ पीपल ऑफ इंडिया, दैट्स अ विक्ट्री ऑफ एवरी कश्मीरी, दैट everything will be done through ballot. Even if it's about resisting, protecting your identity, even if it's about showing some anger in a democracy, that we are here to do it democratically. And that's what all of us wanted. You
So
wanted
what
it.
so what you're saying is don't turn this into politics. Don't turn
I
this
think
into
don't turn
politics.
it into politics, into a sense of defeat to the people of Kashmir कि हमने कर दिया आपने नहीं किया. I think we should welcome this collectively, and it's a big national
Let,
integration movement that has happened after 30 years. It should be celebrated and not given any color.
Okay, Arif Pathania ji, if you'd like to respond to that, because Wahid ने बोला नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस के भी स्टेटमेंट्स आए हैं कि जो लोग यहाँ कहते हैं कि नॉर्मल सी है, ये देखिए नॉर्मल सी बिल्कुल नहीं है. Wahid didn't say that. Wahid just said, let's celebrate this as a moment of collective democracy, and that is what Pakistan can't digest. Before you respond, I'd just like to play out Minister Jitinder Singh's statement. एक मिनट अगर उनको हम सुन ले, and then I'll come to you.
हर आम नागरिक को उसकी चिंता भी है, उसके लेकर के रोष भी है, लेकिन हम ये आश्वस्त रहे जैसे मोदी जी ने कहा कि जीरो टॉलरेंस टुवर्ड्स टेररिज्म, उसी नियम का पालन करते हुए आगे की कार्रवाई भी निर्धारित की जाएगी.
So the government, the new government, within 3 days of being sworn in, is having to reiterate its policy of zero tolerance for terrorism, and we don't know what what shape and form that counter response will take. We'll talk to both Vaid Saab and Hasnain Saab about that. Mr. Pathania, on the politics, the fact that some of the valley-based parties are saying कि ये देखिए normalcy कहाँ है, normalcy कहाँ है, आप क्या कहेंगे?
Barkha, I think there are 3 or 4 aspects of the background issue which we're discussing here in this show. First of all, that ultimately, and which my friends across the board have also accepted, that ultimately that people of Jammu and Kashmir, they have showed their solidarity, their confidence in the Constitution of India and virtually the political process and elections. Whatsoever they have to do through the ballot. One part. Secondly, Article 370, it was an article of duplicity, deception, demagogy, and virtually it promised and it did not give anything to anybody. So there's a message which has gone down the spine of each and everybody that virtually this is over now. Now we were taught and we were fed and we were preached and we were practiced about azadi, freedom, self-rule, autonomy. Nothing will happen. Whatsoever we have to get, we will get from Bharat Sarkar, and that is the only the Constitution of India is the only spring wherefrom we will get some succor, some relief, some development, some employment. One message. Second message that first of all the successful conduct of elections, then historic turnouts, then once again a mazboot sarkar, फिर एक बार मोदी सरकार swearing on the same day, then events across the border in a Pak Adhikrit Jammu and Kashmir, they might have acted as an incendiary also, and more so if you see the operation all out of Bharat Sarkar, all Hawala channels blocked, some publishing houses booked, the employees, certain employees, not employees, a very, very small bunch of employees who were found involved in fostering terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir. They were brought to the book, they were punished, they were shunted out also. So there's an operation all out. And in this operation all out, it is very difficult for the terror support network to survive. So I think this is a new module, this is a new system, and rather this is out of frustration, as General Hasnain said, a layer within Pakistan. It's a, there, if we say the terrorism in Pakistan, a layer within Pakistan had tried to shift the narrative, but be be confident, be patient, and please have faith in us. We stick to our stand, zero tolerance, and we stick to freeing Jammu and Kashmir from the scourge of militancy and terrorism. Terrorism shall be blotted out from the territory of Jammu and Kashmir, lock, stock, and barrel. The perpetrators of these heinous crimes against humanity and the people of Jammu and Kashmir shall not at all go unpunished. A beleaguered, a bewildered, a battered Pakistan is just trying to find relevance and to find ground and to find support and to find a point among the international community. We now these incidents stand as a challenge to each and everybody, to the establishment, to the security, to we people, to the political parties also. So the last punchline lanes that we as politicians, as political parties, we need to behave, we need to act responsibly. I won't nominate anybody, but the way these statements have come out from the top leadership of national political parties, of certain local political parties, I think this is too sensitive an issue to play petty politics over. So my humble request, not a pointer, not a political, not to score a political brownie point. So this humble request, please.
Okay, Wahid, very briefly on this point that Pathania ji made. There are some statements I have seen from valley-based politicians जिन्होंने बात की है कि ये देखिए आपने कहा कि बंदूक चली गई, बंदूक तो यही थी ना. द पॉइंट इज ये बंदूक जम्मू और कश्मीर के लोगों की तो नहीं है, ये बंदूक तो बाहर की है. तो why are we linking the normalcy debate with the sort of gun culture debate? Wahid, please go ahead. Wahid, you're on mute. Please, if you can unmute yourself. Wahid ji, आप mute पे हैं. थोड़ा अपने आप को unmute करिए ना, please.
Barkha,
जी.
we condemn this act and all such acts in the strongest words. सबसे ज्यादा हमसे ज्यादा कोई सफर कर ही नहीं सकता, और जिन्होंने ये देखा है भुगता है, सबसे ज्यादा हम समझते हैं। और इस आज भी जो इंसिडेंट हुआ, इवन इफ इट हैज हैपेंड इन जम्मू नियर एलओसी नियर द बॉर्डर, इसका इम्पैक्ट हम पे ही होगा। और हम ये भी समझते हैं दिस इज एन एक्ट टू प्रोवोक एंड पोलराइज द प्लेस, इट विल हैव अ ह्यूज रैमिफिकेशन ऑन ऑल ऑफ अस। सो व्हाट आई एम सेइंग इज कि जब पठानिया साहब ने कहा कि कहीं से स्टेटमेंट आ सकते हैं, कुछ लोग बोल सकते हैं, लेकिन दे हैव टू आल्सो एज अ नेशनल पार्टी बी वेरी केयरफुल व्हेन दे आर इशूइंग स्टेटमेंट्स। लाइक आई सेड दैट देयर इज अ ह्यूज प्रोसेस दैट पीपल ऑफ कश्मीर हैव इनिशिएटेड इन दिस इलेक्शंस। You should respect this, you should take care of it. It's a huge sensitive political process जो लोगों ने खुद इनिशिएट किया है। और उस प्रोसेस में स्टेटमेंट्स से ही, स्टेट इसको सेल करने से, नैरेटिव वॉर बनाने से कई चीज़ें हो सकती है, कई लोग थ्रेटन हो सकते हैं, कई लोगों को आइसोलेशन लगेगी, ऐसे इंसिडेंट हो सकते हैं। तो वी हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल। आई थिंक मोर इंपॉर्टेंट इज दैट टू रेस्पेक्ट द होल पॉलिटिकल प्रोसेस दैट हैज हैपेंड। इट्स अ ह्यूज शिफ्ट, इट्स नॉट एन इवेंट, it's not an election which is a normal election, it's not an event centric election, it's a huge process that has been initiated by people of Kashmir,
I think,
and
I
it
think
should be taken to the logical
I,
conclusion.
I think on the shift in the election, we would all agree. The kind of people, the people who there were no boycott calls this time. The kind of sort of, as even Wahid called it, a national integration moment that we saw was extraordinary. But let's come back to what happens next. General Hasnain, क्या होगा?
See, first of all, let me compliment both Pathania Saab and Wahid. I've attended so many of your shows and have had so many politicians from Kashmir on the show that today I feel very happy that despite the kind of events which have happened, there is no animosity between the political communities, different parties out here. The kind of maturity which is being shown by their statements actually is very, very heartening for all of us.
Absolutely.
The second thing which I would like to say is I think we have forgotten one very important issue. You are looking at only the elections for the Lok Sabha which have gone by, not looking at the Supreme Court's direction for 30th of September, by which time the assembly elections have to be held. Now, Lok Sabha elections are important, all right. But the final nail in the coffin of Pakistan will be if the same turnout comes out in the assembly elections, which it will, I'm sure, because mostly these are bread and butter elections. And if they come out, it will be a certain confirmation of the narratives which my friend Wahid was just speaking about. So this is what the dissuasion for that has begun now. I interpret this action as an attempted beginning, just a trigger for the attempted dissuasion to prevent people coming out, to disrupt the elections, because that will be a huge message to the world. 1996, if you remember, we had Lok Sabha elections. Similarly, later on, also the assembly elections. And as we progressively went along till 2019, we have had elections. And that is one thing on which no one could point a finger at India ever. This will be the final culmination. And I think that's a very important aspect for us to remember. We have to safeguard those elections. We have to make sure that we give a secure environment, even more secure environment than the one which was given for the Lok Sabha elections just now. Having said that, I think counters have to be carried out. Now, I did write this article in which you may have read it on the aspect of the red lines, that the red lines have to be redrawn. That's for the national political authority to decide. I'm sure everyone is sitting there, very, very good security minds, strategic minds which are sitting there, which are deciding this, and they will decide upon it finally. The success of the last time these two things happened, 2016, the surgical strikes, 2019, the Balakot or the Jamba Top strikes, conveyed a huge strategic message, and things were quite different thereafter. Something similar may have to be thought out. At this time, it's a little premature for us to discuss this and even sort of point fingers at what it could be. But internally, what Vaid Saab and I have been involved with, counter-terror, that is the main thing that we have to be looking at inside. What can we do here? I think the time has come to go back to basics. There are some things which have been forgotten. The strength of terrorists is very low today.
I could debate and I could accept a lot of other arguments for people to say, but I suggest the time has come to actually carry out large-scale operations in the Pir Panjal tracts. Because these areas are, they can house 15, 20, 30, 40 terrorists anywhere, and you could not find them anywhere. But the moment you start undertaking large-scale operations, perhaps you start displacing people. If you don't do that, if you try only surgical operation, then you don't get human intelligence, you don't get technical intelligence. It doesn't make a difference to these people. They act with impunity everywhere. So there have to be some large-scale operations which must be planned out for this. Secondly, this should be seen in the midterm. We got to develop our human intelligence all over again. There is no organization better than that than the Jammu and Kashmir police. The Special Operations Group, SOG, the CIK, or the Counterintelligence Kashmir, I've operated with them and I can tell you they are par excellence. They are the best in the country. They are the people who have to be re-empowered to go ahead and give us the maximum inputs that they can.
I have a question. I have a question before I go to SP Vaid and then for concluding remarks to our political leaders. You said counter-terrorism will have to be thought of. J&K police has been a counter-insurgency police now for decades, as have been other paramilitary forces as well as the military. The military, instead of guarding only the LOC and the borders, has had to do counter-terrorism as well. When you say large-scale operations, you may have to go back to the drawing board and look at revisiting a surgical strikes type option. The question for any country becomes, does every terror strike lead to the same response? Because clearly Pakistan or Pakistan-backed groups or the deep state of Pakistan is trying to test you, provoke you, test you, provoke you, test you. How do you calibrate that response?
And that is the core question. And that's the question which a lot of people in Delhi are asking us. There are no immediate responses to that. As I told you, this has to be thought through, wargamed at the national strategic security level. We can't start responding to every single thing which keeps happening here. We can carry out covert operations. We can ensure that it hurts Pakistan much more than what we have been able to hurt it so far. But as a responsible nation, India by and large carries a reputation of not doing these kind of things. But obviously we have to turn to that. Because if you've got neighbors who are involved in that, in attempting to try and make you uncomfortable, you have to make sure that you take all those measures to make your neighbors uncomfortable, if that's the way the game has to be played. So those decisions will be taken at the national level, but I think locally, formations, state police, the army, etc., they can still get their act together completely on this through going back to the best practices of counterterrorism. Satvavinash, if you remember, Hilkaka operation of 2003, something on those lines. It doesn't have to be a copycat operation, but something like that can obviously pay dividends.
Okay, we have 2-3 minutes left.